Hey everybody, I'm actually here with Frank Shankwitz. My name is Carlos Collado with On the Road to Success. If you don't know who Frank Shankwitz is, for the three people that don't know, because I've spoken about you so much for like 2 months already, Frank Shankwitz is a founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Now you definitely know that organization. How are you, Frank?
Great, and thank you for inviting me. I appreciate that.
No, thank you, Frank. Frank, you have a beautiful story. I think so much intuition and feeling went into it. Kind of like tell us your story on how the Make-A-Wish Foundation got created.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back quite a ways because I created it in 1980, but the events that led up to it was I was a Arizona Highway Patrol motorcycle officer during those days. And we were introduced, told about a little boy named Chris, 7 years old. Chris had terminal leukemia. And when they told us Chris only has a couple weeks to live. But they always told us that Chris had two heroes from a TV show that was popular during those days called Chips. And Chips was the adventures of two California highway patrolmen, motorcycle officers, and their adventures. And Chris loved that show. And a lot of his age group did. Chips was on for several years. And he told his mother, when I grow up, I wish I could be a Highway Patrol motorcycle officer like Ponch and John, the characters from that TV show. And the family contacted Arizona Highway Patrol, told them about Chris, and just said, is there any way that he can meet a motorcycle officer? And the doctors would allow him to leave his hospital. He's on IVs. He's very ill. And the department said, of course, they would do anything they could to help this little boy. And they happened to choose me to be that motorcycle officer because I was on a squad of 10 men. We worked the whole state of Arizona. And when we had a little bit of off time, we would go into the local grade schools, talk to the kids about bicycle safety, which they could care less about. They wanted to get on the motorcycle. But it was a great PR thing. And I just happened to be the motorcycle officer they chose. And Chris is picked up at his hospital in our state police helicopter, flown to our headquarters building where I was standing by, and I had no idea what to expect. I mean, I just knew this boy was very ill. I pictured our paramedics were going to help him out, put him in a wheelchair or something. Helicopter lands, door opens, little pair of red sneakers just jumps out. I mean, literally jumps out of the helicopter, runs over. Hi, I'm Chris. And this little boy is having so much fun. He's smiling. He's got on a motorcycle. And we trained initially with California Highway Patrol. Our motorcycles were identical, except ours said Arizona instead of California. And he knew every button and switch on that motorcycle. Wow. This is a siren. Can I turn on? These are the red lights. What's in your saddlebag? It's the same as Ponch has in his. Just having this ball, laughing and giggling. And I'm looking at his mother, and she's crying. And I couldn't understand why. And then it dawned on me, she has her 7-year-old back. The typical 7-year-old, not laying in a bed, for IVs and everything.
Wow.
But Chris went on that day to become the first and only honorary motorcycle officer with the Arizona Highway Patrol, complete with his own badge, complete with a smoky hat that we gave him, a certificate swearing him in as a Highway Patrol officer. And he kept coming up to me, rubbing the wings that we have on my uniform. And he said, how do I be a motorcycle officer? And we just discussed it a little bit. And then Chris started getting tired, and the doctor said, let's take him home, not back to the hospital. Put him in his comfort zone. He says, I don't understand. His vitals are so good. Let's let him go home, which was great for Mom and Chris. So we felt good about what we had done. But the guy started saying, wait a minute, we've got this officer, he needs a uniform. Went to the uniform shop. They were custom made in those days. But just at closing time, so we got this little boy, 7 years old, he's about this wide, this high. Can you make a uniform for Chris? 2 ladies spent all night tailoring this custom-made uniform for him. Go out to the next day to his house with the permission of our commanders. I led several motorcycles, highway patrol cars, red lights and sirens. You can imagine the neighborhood, right? What's going on? Chris comes running out. We hand him his uniform. This little boy, again, is ecstatic. Runs in the house, comes strutting out with his full uniform, the smoky hat and everything. And he comes over to me again, rubs the motorcycle wings. And this is the first time I heard this word. He says, I wish I could be a motorcycle officer. And I just started teasing Chris. I told him the training we went through and everything. I said, it's a shame you don't have a motorcycle. We would set up some traffic cones in the driveway and test you right now. This little boy's a step ahead of me. Runs in the house, comes riding out on a little battery-operated motorcycle that his mother got for him in place of a wheelchair. He's got on the helmet we gave him. He's got on aviator glasses like motorcycle officers wear. But the biggest thing was he had what we call on a ranch mucking boots, the high rubber top boots that he stuck the pant legs in that looked like motorcycle officer boots. He says, I'm ready. He goes through the cones. He comes back. Did I pass? Yes, you did, Chris. He's all smiles, and then he looks at me. When do I get my wings? Well, those are special order also. A jeweler had to make those.
Wow.
And I said, Chris, we'll order the rings right away. Again, he got to stay home. 2 days later, I pick up the wings from the jeweler. I get a call. Chris is in the hospital, in a coma, probably not going to survive the day. They gave me permission to go to his hospital. Just as I walked in the room, and his uniform is hanging right by his bed. I walk in there, I pin on the wings on his uniform. He comes out of the coma. He looks at me, he just starts smiling. Am I a motorcycle officer now? Yes, you are, Chris. His wish had become true. And unfortunately, he died a couple hours later. And I always like to say maybe those wings helped carry him to heaven.
Wow.
But our commanders learned that Chris is going to be buried in Illinois, a little town in Illinois called Kewanee, Illinois. And they came to me and they said, Frank, I want you and another motorcycle officer to go to Illinois and give this little boy a full police funeral. We have lost a fellow officer, which we did. What's so amazing, the press now is starting to pick this up. And I mean, nationwide press is picking up 2 motorcycle officers going to bury this little boy. And we were met, the word got out, we were met in this little town by Illinois State Police, City Police, County Police, all with a full funeral procession for this little boy. And Chris was buried in uniform. His grave marker reads, Chris Gracious, Arizona Trooper. Flying back to Illinois, I just started thinking, here's a little boy who had a wish, and we made it happen. Why can't we do that for other children? And that's when the idea was born, maybe 38,000 feet over Kansas or something, to start this foundation. And it took 6 months to get it going. Everybody said, it's not going to work. We've never heard anything like this. But I learned a long time ago, turn those negatives to positives, and we made it happen.
That's such an amazing and beautiful story with that little boy, Chris. Frank, I'm very familiar with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I knew it was big because I used to watch, I believe, partly on SportsCenter or ESPN.
ESPN, sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I saw David Ortiz on it one time with a little boy. I saw Derek Jeter one time with a little boy, and I grew up playing baseball, so I always wanted to be a part of a foundation or partly start one day. Okay, so which leads me to this. You had this intuition, you had this idea in starting with some other people, this foundation, Make-A-Wish Foundation. How did your intuition, so you got the idea, how did that play a role in actually starting it?
Well, as I started researching this, and we went to the local hospital where this boy was in Phoenix, Arizona, and the children's order, we found out there were so many of the children in there with these terminal illnesses, and especially leukemia. Now, this is 1980. Leukemia was a death sentence. Today, fortunately, about 70% of the children are surviving this illness because, like I say, through the grace of God, modern medicine. But when I saw this, and I thought, all these kids, every kid, when I was a kid, you were a kid, we had a wish. We wanted to do something. We wanted to be a cowboy or fireman or whatever it might be, an actor, sports star. And just let's get something going to help these children. And I got all frustrated a lot of times because, like I said, it was hard to find. We had to find in Arizona for the Corporation Commission, we had to have a total of 5 board members to start the foundation. And everybody I talked to said, no, it's a bad idea, it's never going to work. But we found the right 5 people and got it going. And we became official in November of 1980, only 6 months after meeting Chris. And kaboom, look what's happened. We had an idea, we made it work. But it took literally now thousands and thousands of people to make it work, make it grow, keep it going. And I'm going to boast here a little bit. After we did our first official wish in March of 1981, I told our board that someday we're going to be national and international, granting wishes all over the world, because I could just see the response of the people. And they laughed at me. Well, now, 38 years later, we're 63 chapters in the United States. We have 36 international chapters on 5 continents, and we to date have granted over 450,000 wishes to children all over the world because of a 7-year-old boy. What a legacy this little boy has left, right?
And they laughed at you.
Well, yeah, they laughed at me, yeah.
I have read a lot of books, many books. This year, probably 50 books so far. And there's a common theme when it comes to leadership. And I believe you're a great leader because a leader, what I have learned, surrounds himself with the right people,
Yes.
good people, and then they paint the picture. Not only that, they paint the picture, the big goal, the dream of where they want to go, and they do a great job in transmitting that information, that picture, to everybody else.
Exactly, and you've got to have them accept that idea. But the biggest thing that I learned as a leader was lead by example. Whatever you're asking other people to do, you do too, and you do it better to give them the example. And even if it takes, like, we're setting up charity events and so on. I'm the guy that's setting up the chairs and this and that, the volunteers. Who's that guy? Well, that's the founder. That's the president and CEO.
That's beautiful.
And you're setting that example for them. And it makes them feel good. Makes you feel good,
Yes.
too. Yeah.
I can relate. When I came in, I'm not in this event organization. I came to join to see the speakers. I paid. And I asked the ladies in the front checking people in if they wanted some coffee. They didn't want, but it was out of my intuition, and it's a good feeling to be serving.
Well, and you did the same with me.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I said, I'll go get it for you.
Yeah.
No.
Frank, so you mentioned something, and you asked many people to be a part of this big dream that you have, and many said no. So I want to just hit on this key point, because a lot of people, they face no or rejection or a problem, and they don't want to keep going. So I'm very happy that you actually kept going, because you have literally changed thousands, if not millions, of people's or children and families' lives, because you had the tenacity to keep going.
Well, and I learned a new world. Like I said, I always learned in a police work, they say you can't do this, we find a way to change that negative to positive, how we can do it, how we conduct investigation, how we can find our suspects. But I'm going way back to my childhood. My mother left me when I was in 7th grade. She said, you're on your own. A family took me in, and I was just kind of devastated. And they said, always remember, turn your negative. Now, this is 1950 something. This wasn't a positive turn then. Always remember to get that negative to a positive. I said, what do you mean? He said, you were living in a dumpy place. You didn't even have hot water. You're going to be with this family now with your own bedroom for the first time. The greatest cook in town, because always grounds you for meals and that. And he said, everything that's happened to you, that negative, is now positive. And I always remembered that lesson from him. But the other thing was, I think you've met Greg Reed.
Yes, I have.
And Greg Reed is my mentor for this new speaking career. But he came up with a new word called stickability.
Yes.
And I love that word. I was even at Harvard speaking a few years ago, and I mentioned that, and they said, I think we need to insert that in our curriculum. Stickability. Don't give up on your cause. Just keep it up. Find the right people to work with. And if you have to, and you should, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. That's the big key right there, because they're going to enhance your team, make it grow.
Yes. David Meltzer, who I believe you know as well.
Yes.
Okay. He, from watching him, he has said that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong place.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly, yes.
So I'm excited to hear that from you. Frank, I know we're short on time. You have this new movie coming out.
Well, we hope it's coming
right?
out. We completed it. It was just finished, in fact, 2 weeks ago, the complete post-production.
Yes.
And it's titled Wishman. And it's right now being shopped to distributors. And Wishman is a story about my life from age 10, 1950 to 1980, when I started the foundation. But it's about the people that influenced my life, that guided me, that gave me the character, the integrity, the work ethics, everything that it did lead up to start this foundation.
I got to see it actually at Greg Reed's house. The unedited version, it was great for like 20 minutes. But it's a powerful, I think it's going to be a powerful movie for 2018 and 19. And for years to come. I've seen movies that have impacted me a long time ago, and I watch it and watch it again, never get tired of it. And this will definitely be one of those movies. All the way from California, we saw it, all the way to New York City, my hometown. We're here. I'm very excited about this movie. I believe Greg asked you, tell me one wish, right? Because nobody has ever granted you a wish.
Several years ago, I was at an event, and he said, "What's your wish?" And I said, "What?" He said, "What's your wish?" I said, "Nobody's ever asked me that. I didn't even think about it." And I said, "Well, I just kind of like my story told." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Just something where my children, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren know what grandpa, what dad did, and so on." And he said, "Okay, we're going to do this movie about your life." And I thought he was talking about a documentary. And I said, "Well, yeah, I don't even want that." And he said, a documentary maybe." He said, "No, feature motion picture." Now, we've been working 5 years on this, and I say we because I'm part of the team that's put this all together. But what a great team they assembled. And the message of the movie is everyone can be a hero. That's the message of the movie. In your own community. You don't have to have money. You can anything you can to help somebody out, like we're learning here today at the city.
Scale, yes.
Anything you can do to help somebody, you can be a hero.
I love it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You did it with Make-A-Wish Foundation. You got the right people, put the action into play, and now you're doing it with the movie.
Right.
Greg got the right people, right team, and they made you mentioned also they made you a part of it. Hey Frank, what do you think, right?
Well, yeah, I was hired as a consultant producer, technical advisor, and location scout. And one of the things I insisted, I lobbied for is a better word, that we film this in my area of northern Arizona, because these are little town and people that helped me out so much. And finally, I'm giving back to that community because we're bringing this large film crew in, infusing a lot of money into the local economy. So and a lot of these guys I've known since kids, and now they're the business leaders in these towns, and giving back to everybody that helps me out.
That's amazing.
But one thing, if I can tell you, the most emotional thing on this movie is, as a technical advisor, myself and a script supervisor were the first ones on the set every day. And if you've ever been on a movie location, it's the most boring, long days you can ever be on. But we would go over the script for the day, we would go over the scenes, and we'd look at the set design to make sure that everything fit what was coming up. And then if there was an error or something, we'd go to the director and say, "We found this," they'd correct it right away before we start filming. And this little girl that was a script supervisor named Kennedy Del Toro, and nice little girl, she knew what the movie was about, and we hit it off right away.
Okay.
But about 3 days into it, she came up to me and started crying and gave me a big hug, and I said, "Kennedy, what's wrong?" She said, "I'm a wish child." I started crying.
Wow.
Everybody in that room started crying. Just all of this, and look at the circle giving back here. And so
we're gonna cut it short there, when they need the room. But Frank, thank you so much for your time.
thank you, I appreciate it.
You got it.
That was fun.